Hi guys, I'm Andrea. Happy 2020. I hope you've all had a wonderful start of the year so far. Today I wanted to talk about some books that I'm really looking forward to in the year 2020. One of the great things about BookTube for me, since I've joined, is that I've begun to read not only more diversely, but really read more intersectionally within that diversity, I guess you could say. And I think there's been a lot of Twitter talk about diversity in publishing and in books lately on Twitter and on social media. So I thought I'd do a list of 20 books that I'm excited for in 2020 by diverse authors. Number 1, Mexican Gothic by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. This is released on June 30th, 2020, so in 6 months, but she's one of my favorite authors and I talk about her like all the time on this channel. Here's a link to an article that I just wrote on her actually. But Mexican Gothic is basically a retelling of a classic Gothic tale, and it involves secrets, dark pasts, and isolated mansions, which just sounds amazing. And it involves, or it's about this Mexican socialite named Naomi, whose cousin sends her like this very frantic letter that she needs help. So she goes to the mansion where her cousin lives and things go down. Getting a really cool Castle of Otranto vibe from it, so I'm looking forward to that book a lot, and she's a great writer. And definitely check out her books if you haven't already. The second book on my list is Cemetery Boy by Aiden Thomas. This is released also in June 9th, 2020, and it's about Yadier, who is a trans boy from a very conservative traditional Latinx family who has issues accepting his true identity. So in order to prove himself, he wants to establish his power. So Yadier comes from a family of brujos, so he wants to establish his abilities by bringing or summoning the ghost of his murdered cousin and setting him free. But instead of summoning the ghost of his cousin, he accidentally summons this ghost of this guy that went to his high school, who's kind of like this bad boy. And hijinks ensue. And I'm really excited to read it because the cover art is beautiful and Aiden is super hilarious on Twitter. Number 3 is We Unleash the Merciless Storm by Taylor Q. Mejia. This book comes out next month, February 25th, 2020. And it's the sequel to We Set the Dark on Fire, which came out last year. And it's told from the perspective of Carmen. If you read We Set the Dark on Fire, I've made this entire video review, or I've talked about this book at length too, and I'll probably link the videos where I talk about it more in detail. But it's basically a dystopian world where women are kind of sent to this school and trained to become wives to the wealthy elite in the world of Medio, which is Latinx coded. It's not in a specific Latinx country, but it is really inspired by the violence and the political corruption within a lot of Latin American countries. So in the sequel, it kind of goes into the heart of the rebellion, which is called La Voz, and it kind of goes into Carmen's struggles between her love interest, which is Danny, and the cause that she's devoted herself her whole life to. She's devoted her whole life to. Yeah, and I actually already read this book. I got the arc of it a couple of months ago, and I'm very interested to hear what people think of it. I think the ending was definitely an interesting choice on the part of the author, and I can't wait to hear the discussions that surround it. Fourth book on my list is Deep and Darkest Red by Anna Marie McLemore. Sorry, I got the cough. And it is released later this month on the 20th of January, and it's a retelling of the classic fairy tale The Red Shoes by Hans Christian Andersen. And it's told by 2 different voices in 2 different times. One is Lavina, who is a girl in 1518 who is being accused of witchcraft after a dancing sickness spreads and makes a woman drop dead. The other is set in the present with Rosela Oliva, a girl who has a pair of red shoes sealed to her that make her dance uncontrollably, and she meets Emile, who is a trans boy whose family has an intimate knowledge of the 1518 dancing fever, and the 2 kind of embark on an adventure to uncover the truth and help Rosella survive the shoes. The next book on my list is Infinity Sun by Adam Silvera. This is released on January 14th, 2020, which is after the filming of this video, but I don't know when I will post this, so it might be out already. So these are about New York brothers Emile and Brighton who get caught up in a magical war that started years before they were born. I'm really interested in this book because I love the way Silvera kind of writes dual narratives. Like I saw that with History's All You Left Me and a lot of his other books. He kind of has, he's really good at like the back and forth, which I think not a lot of authors excel in, but he's definitely one that like is amazing at it. Next one is Clap Me When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is released on May 14th, 2020. And it's about these two long lost sisters who learn about each other after the death of their father in a plane crash. And the concept is really what I kind of gravitated toward, and I kind of like this idea of found family, but it's actually your real life family, and it's kind of having to come together because of these really horrific circumstances. And it's kind of learning to bond with each other in a really, I guess, tragic environment, or because of a really tragic catalyst. And that kind of idea really interests me, and I'm really intrigued to read it. Next book on my list is The Worst Best Man by Mia Sosa. This is released on February 4th. I actually have a hard physical arc of it somewhere that I couldn't find. But I'm very excited for this book, even though I'm not the biggest fan of romance. I barely read my first romance book like last year, or last month technically. But I want to give this one a chance because it's described as a romantic comedy about a woman whose new job requires her to work side by side with the man who ruined her wedding, her ex-fiance's brother. The next book on my list is Incendiary by Zoraida Cordova. This is about Renata Convida, who was kidnapped as a child because of her powers, and it's loosely based on the Spain of the 15th century, and it's a reimagining of the Inquisition. This cover is also really badass, and I enjoyed her Labyrinth Lost and Bruja Born series I made, so I'm excited to see where she takes this one. I'm kind of flying through these because there's so many, so forgive me if I seem scatterbrained. Force of Souls by Lori Emily. This is also a June release. It's June 23rd, and it's about Saoirse Ashwin, who comes from nothing, but she's intent on becoming something. After years of training to become the queen's next royal spy, her plans are derailed when shamans attack and kill her best friend, Siango, and then Saoirse somehow restores Siango to life. And that's what really interests me. I'm really interested in the resurrected lover, friend, family member trope in books, because it just comes with a lot of baggage, and I don't know what that says about me, but I love reading struggles and that kind of stuff and magic. Next book on my list is The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna, and this is released on May 26, 2020. It's described as this very bold and immersive West African inspired feminist fantasy. It's about 16-year-old Deka, who lives in fear and anticipation of the blood ceremony that will determine whether she becomes a member of her village. And she's already kind of ostracized from her community because she has this unnatural intuition, and so Deka prays that her blood ceremony shows that she has red blood, so she can finally feel like she belongs. It's been described as a really good fit for people that are fans of Children of Blood and Bone, which I really enjoyed, so I really want to check this one out too. Bad, Bad and Dangerous to Know by Samira Ahmed, which is going to be published on April 7th, 2020. This is a book that's told in alternating timelines with alternating main characters. And it's about the lives of two young Muslim women fighting to write their own stories and escape the pressures of familial burdens and cultural expectations in worlds too long defined by men. And again, just the concept of this book really intrigues me. I like that it's dual narrative, but not only that, it's two different time periods and they're centuries apart, which is super like captivating to me, I guess, as a reader, because it's not something that I read of often. So yeah. The next book is Wicked As You Wish by Rancho Peco. This book is published on March 3rd, 2020. And it's about Tala, who is a descendant of a magical Filipina heroine. And things start to get complicated when her family is sent to protect the country of Avalon, which has been frozen over for 12 years, I believe, and its last prince. And they need to protect it from those who would use the kingdom for insidious ends. And what kind of really interested me in this book when I was researching it through Goodreads, I hope I actually interpreted it correctly, but it seems like it has this kind of incorporation of what sounds like spy spell surveillance. Like I'm using spells as a kind of surveillance and spying, like aware of the people, which I think is cool. I don't know. Next book on my list is Not So Pure and Simple by Lamar Gills. This is released January 21st, 2020. And I really like the themes that this book says it focuses on. It is about the consequences of societal pressure, and it confronts toxic masculinity and explores the complexity of what it means to be a real man. The way it was described, it sounds like this coming of age where a boy kind of learns that a girl isn't a prize to be won. She isn't a trophy, and she isn't an accomplishment to be like displayed and won and that kind of stuff. The next book I have on my list is The Henna Wars by Adiba Jagredar, and this is released on May 12th, 2020. So Nishat comes out to her Muslim parents as lesbian, and they don't accept her at all. And her best friend from childhood, Flavia, comes into town, and she falls for her fast. And the two kind of start this henna business for a school competition, and feelings ensue. Number 14 on my list is Running by Natalia Sylvester, which is released on May 5th, 2020. So when 15-year-old Cuban-American Mariana Ruiz's father runs for president, Mari starts to see him with new eyes. It's a novel about waking up and standing up, and what happens when you stop seeing your dad as a hero while the whole nation is watching. So from the looks of it, from what I read of this book, it sounds like this girl starts to discover some things about her dad that go against her own moral and core, and I think there'll be like a really interesting internal struggle of like loving somebody but learning that they've done these really horrible things, and what do you do when that person's dad. So I'm excited to see where the author takes it, the plot especially. The next book I'm really excited to read. I want it so bad in my hands, and it's called Sharks in the Time of Saviors by Kawai Strong Washburn, and this is going to be released on March 3rd, 2020. This takes place in 1995 Hawaii on a rare family vacation. 7-year-old Nainoa Flores falls overboard in a cruise ship into the Pacific Ocean. At the last minute, he's kind of saved by this shark, and his family sees this as a sign of favor from the ancient gods. But eventually this kind of favor tears the family apart. When supernatural events revisit the Flores family in Hawaii with tragic consequences, they are all forced to reckon with the bonds of family, the meaning of heritage, and the cost of survival. I don't read many own voices authors from Hawaii, and main characters from Hawaii as well. So I'm really interested in this book especially. This cover is beautiful, at least to me. And it's one of my most anticipated for 2020 in general. The next book I want to talk about is also on one of my most anticipated lists because I'm really interested in the horror aspect of it. This is described as a horror book, and it's called The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. Its release date is May 19th, 2020. And it's described as a horror book for fans of writers and directors like Jordan Peele. It follows 4 American Native men who, after a disturbing event from their youth, puts them into this desperate struggle in their lives, and they're tracked by an entity bent on revenge. These childhood friends are helpless as the culture and traditions that they left behind start to catch up to them in a violent, vengeful way. And again, I'm really interested in the supernatural aspect, in the tragedy, in the horror, and I love that it's by a known voices author, and it kind of incorporates native storytelling as well. The next book I want to check out is Bungalow Water by Bethany C. Morrow, and its release date is June 2nd, 2020. And it's this urban fantasy book. It's about Tavia, who has to keep her siren identity away from the rest of the world. And on top of that, she lives in Portland, and in this world, there's only a handful of Black people in Portland, and even less of them have like supernatural abilities. So she's like this high school girl, and she's kind of navigating that with her best friend Effie. Everything kind of changes when there's this giant siren murder trial, and her world kind of becomes the center of it. At the same time, the girl's favorite internet like fashion icon comes out as a siren, and the news rips through their entire community. So the tensions start to escalate when Effie is beginning to get haunted by demons from her past, and Tavia accidentally lets out her magical voice during a police stop. And I saw this book on NetGalley already, and I requested it, so I hopefully I get it. The next book I want to talk about is Star Daughter by Shweta Thakkar, and it's released on August 11th, 2020. It's inspired by Hindu mythology. So Sheetal is the daughter of a star and a mortal man. When he gets injured, Sheetal embarks on a journey to a celestial court where the stakes are at an all-time high. I like how the plot of this book takes place in a celestial court, so instead of being kind of grounded to the earth, it feels like everything takes place in the stars, which interests me. And I like the Hindu mythology aspect of it as well. Next book is Lobisona by Romina Garber, and it's released on May 5th, 2020. I got an arc of this book from NetGalley, and I'm really excited to start reading it. Anyways, this is about Manuela Azul, who is an undocumented immigrant in Miami, who was hiding from her father's kind of Argentinian crime family. After her mom is arrested by ICE, Manuela discovers a really mysterious and secret world that she comes from, and where every seventh daughter is a bruja, but every seventh son is a werewolf. And those two kind of intersect. And again, this cover of this book is beautiful. All the covers of all these books I think are amazing, by the way. But I remember when I first saw the cover of Lobisona, immediately add to the TBR. I love it so much. And they say you should judge a book by cover, but it's beautiful, dude. And my last book is You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. Its release date is June 2nd, 2020. And it surrounds Liz Leidy, and she's a small town teen with big world plans. She intends on attending a super exclusive school called Pennington College, but after her financial aid plan falls through, Liz decides to do whatever it takes to enroll in that school. So she decides to enter her high school prom queen competition because the winner usually gets some kind of like scholarship to go for like furthering education. So she needs that money real bad. So that's my list. I purposely did not include middle grade in this list because I might do a different video just on middle grade books. So there's that. I hope you found a book that sounds interesting, and if you did, let me know what books are you excited for in 2020. I'd love to find out, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.